Hello and welcome back to the Awaken podcast. I'm your host, Maria Crystene, and I am so excited to announce today's guest, Natalie MacNeil. I'm going to read a little bit about Natalie and then I'm going to let her take the mic. But Natalie is a futurist, an Emmy Award winning media entrepreneur, and the founder of AI Dream Team, which helps entrepreneurs build deeply human AI powered businesses. I actually connected with Natalie and I got into her program last fall because, as many of us know, as solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, we wear so many hats. And I kept seeing her program come up on my feed. And I was like, I need some AI support. And I also really liked how she had this more embodied, holistic approach. So, Natalie, welcome to the conversation. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Maria, and so good to be here with all of you listening.
Ah, so I want to say to start off, a huge reason, Natalie, why I wanted to have you on is AI is really front of mind and it's kind of a central topic right now for many of us on the planet. And to be honest, you don't even have to be an entrepreneur. My husband is in IT, he's in a regular 9 to 5 career. We have people who might be founders, startups, creatives, artists, like so many people right now are kind of like tapping into this AI. How can I use it? How can I use it responsibly? So I really wanted to have someone come on who you are so well versed and knowledgeable in this topic area. So I'm really excited to dive into it today.
Same.
Now, can I ask, Natalie, how did you get into this? If you would like to share a little bit more about yourself, where you are in the world, and tell us, like, let's start with how did you get into this? How did you land into building the AI Dream Team?
Well, I'm a Canadian living in Los Angeles, and I have always been a futurist. Like when I think about even my childhood and the things that I was drawn to, I was always drawn to the future. I feel like I've had a very rich relationship with my future self for most of my life. I had a feeling I was going to end up in California at a very, very young age.
So
And
interesting.
yes, like some things we just know. I don't know if you'd remember this, or if listeners remember Encyclopedia Britannica. Like, do you remember the big, thick encyclopedias? So
Yes, yes,
I
you'd get a
loved
whole A to
reading, like,
Z.
that's how much of a nerd I am. Like I used to read Encyclopedia Britannica as a child, and there was the entries on like California and the Pacific Coast Highway, and I would look at those images and I just knew that I was going to live there one day
That's so
without ever having visited. And so I always had this like sense of the future and of my future, but then also our collective future as well. And that led me to doing very innovative work pretty much in every industry that I've been in. I've spanned different industries. I started a media and production company. That was one of my first businesses. This is almost 20 years
Oh
ago
my
that I was
gosh.
working in media now, and we created some of the world's first 360-degree interactive videos, documentaries, like full feature films, video games. And then it was just this path of always being at the leading edge of what was coming and always being someone who's like a researcher at heart and a
Yeah.
geek at heart. And so I ended up, it was back in 2017, 2018, because I'm also an investor. And I started to see a lot of big breakthroughs in AI happening around that time. We had
And
some
had
really
you
big,
already been following AI at the time? You know what I mean? Like you'd already kind of been,
yes.
yeah, okay. It was like in your
I
awareness.
follow technology. It's both a
Okay.
following from a mental process that I have, like a desire to be like I would consider myself to be an intellectual. I love reading. I read for hours a day. I track research. I read white papers. I read studies. So there's that. And I'm
Yeah.
also deeply intuitive and have a meditation practice. And I've always got visions, like since I was a kid. So it's kind of this intersection of the technology and also the intuition and the visions that
Yeah.
when I started seeing some of the AI breakthroughs that were happening, especially in 2018, I knew that we were on the brink of having that big breakthrough. Usually, for a technology
Mm.
to break through to the masses, it needs a very user-friendly interface. We needed a tool that before ChatGPT, I was using Jasper. So that was like that predates ChatGPT. And then when ChatGPT came out, like that was the moment where when I saw that, I was like, okay, this is the zeitgeist moment where we reach that tipping point where it becomes more accessible to the masses. And at that point, I was just ready to dive in. And that's why I've been teaching AI for the last few years as well. And once I experimented and started building workflows for myself, I started doing that with clients as well, but also bringing my background in embodiment work and the spiritual path that I've been on. And it's it's both for me. And that's why I do take a very holistic approach. I feel like a bridge
Yeah.
between spirituality and technology and between like the mind and the heart. I feel like I'm
I
always like in the middle of things.
And I feel like that is so needed in the tech and AI world because I think without it, without that, without the heart behind it, without the embodiment behind it, it's so easy. I don't know. Like I think of like, especially because you know how you said you're over in California. I think of like Silicon Valley, the tech bros, and when you begin to use technology and a system like AI, it seems like if you don't have the groundedness and the holistic piece, it'd be very easy to give your power away to the technology, to whatever it is, and just be like, okay, like it'll do it for me. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to like embody it. I don't have to check it against my own values. Like, I just mean like going unchecked. That's what it could look like. And I think even in real life, we've all kind of seen in current day events and things about how if you let AI run unchecked, with people who aren't using it like against their own value system and their own consciousness, it can not take us maybe to places that we want to go. So again, I really value your approach with it. And it just feels like, again, you were meant to be here in this moment in time to pioneer us into this AI. I don't want to say AI dominated, but this AI symbiotic relationship with humans and consciousness to support us. So, can you share? I will say I'm going to probably dive all over. Like I was telling Natalie, I have the records open. There's so many things coming through. But, Natalie, would you share how your approach to AI is different? Tell us a little bit more about some. I mean, I already know because I've been in your programs, but what how is the approach and how you're using AI maybe different than I don't know other programs or how other people might be approaching it?
Yeah, so there are a few things that are coming through for me because I think one of the first tabs, I'm just tracking tabs that you've now opened for me. One of the first tabs is like there is a need for us to stay connected to our own intuition and to our inner knowing and to our power in these times. And so that can look as simple as how you bring an intention into AI, like the energy that you bring to the work that you are doing. You could set an intention. You can check in with yourself before then engaging in your work with the technology so that you are keeping your own intuition at the forefront of the work that you're doing and making it more collaborative and having that back and forth with
Yeah.
it that can expand your thinking, but also bring in your intuitive hits. So if it says something and you're like, oh, actually, intuitively, I'm feeling this, and having that back and forth, because then you're bringing your ideas and your genius and your inner knowing, and then it's also challenging you and asking you questions that can lead to, I think, more refinement in what you end up getting as an output in the end, depending on what your goal is for why you're using it. And then you're also Another tab that I'm tracking in this conversation is this intersection of AI and consciousness.
Yeah.
And we are living through what I believe is one of the most significant consciousness events that we've had. Like most people in the AI space, they speak about AI purely through the lens of productivity, and we talk about things like job displacement, but there's a much bigger story that is unfolding here. So, what I see is I see AI as a mirror that is reflecting back what we put into it. So if we're bringing unconscious patterns and conditioning and unexamined beliefs to AI, that is going to be what we get back. And so a lot of the shadow that we see with AI is our own shadow. And I think we're afraid of AI because we're afraid of ourselves and we're afraid of our own shadow. And that
Yes.
requires us to be in that deeper shadow work, which I know some of us have been doing for a very long time. And then, there are other things to be aware of too that I think are really important for us to be talking about, like this phenomenon. It now has a name. It's called ChatGPT induced psychosis. So people build entire worldviews around what their AI is telling
Oh
them. And
gosh.
they think that they are awakening. They think that they are awakened, but
Yeah.
actually they're falling deeper into an echo chamber of their own unexamined beliefs, but that's
Yes.
all wrapped in really beautiful language and it can be super seductive. So that's something we have to be aware of. And to me, and this is the other piece that I'm tracking from this is like our spirituality, bringing our spirituality into it.
Yeah.
And I think that at least on my spiritual path, on my path, we question everything. And
Mhm.
real awakening can actually be deeply uncomfortable because it will
Absolutely.
dismantle our assumptions
Yes.
and our beliefs and who we thought we were. And if your AI is only validating your worldview, which is happening a lot right now, you are just in this hall of mirrors that is a very dangerous
Mhm.
place to be. But then the flip side of that is actually really extraordinary because there is a way that you can just update in your overall system prompt. Everyone in their settings, when you're working with an LLM, you can update your system prompt so that it will challenge you and it will call out your beliefs and your biases. And then when you're bringing genuine awareness and you're bringing that discernment and you're bringing presence to your work with AI and you're having it challenge you, challenge your assumptions, challenge your beliefs, like it is one of the most powerful tools for self-reflection as well. So I've had AI do things like review a decade of my journals and surface patterns for me that I wasn't seeing on my
Oh
own.
my
And
gosh, I love
it
that.
it was so cool to have it do that, but I do that in a very intentional
Yeah.
way. So I think we have to
Yeah.
hold both right now, right? It's like AI and consciousness, and we have to bring spiritual
Yes.
maturity to the technology
Yes.
because that is ultimately going to determine what kind of future that we can create.
100%, 100%. Okay, and I love it. And I love how you like see it in tabs. And I just want to point out that with each piece that you brought there, that is exactly why I wanted to work with Natalie and her AI programs. Because I want to point out there's a lot of different AI programs right now that you could plug into and different mentors that are speaking on AI. But you just beautifully articulated in those points about why I chose you as someone who, like, okay, I want to go through her program. And it's because I didn't just want someone to give me some good AI prompts, and like just tell me how to be a more efficient worker or a more efficient human. But I loved that you were also pushing the conversation of how can you set an intention before you hop into your AI? And also, like, you weren't afraid to have, like, to say, also, how can you like refine the prompt to not just like, oh, is this just reflecting back to me what I want to hear? So I just noticed there was like a depth in even just like some of the things that I was seeing of the promotion of your program that I was like, oh, I want that. And then as someone who's actually gone through the program, I just want to affirm that that's truly your program goes so deep into how we can build and use AI, but with intention, with and connected to our bodies and consciousness. And I just don't think a lot of programs are doing that. I want to also pull out this piece around. Okay, I have to ask because you know what actually sparked this conversation, Natalie, and why I even reached out to you and was like, I'm going to see if she'll come on the podcast. Have you read the book? I just looked it up to make sure. It's called The Origin by Dan Brown.
No, but I know it. Yeah, I know Dan Brown's work. I haven't read that one though.
Okay, I do recommend it. I do recommend it. And the only piece that I'm going to pull from that, and for anybody who's listening, it's a really interesting read. But in the book, it also positions how there's this like AI tech thing that the main character's working with. And then Robert Langdon, one of the main characters in the Dan Brown book, is, on an adventure with it. But in the end, it's about how it's almost like people were giving their power away to the tool, to the tech, thinking like, oh, well, it's almost like in the book, it was almost framing like AI. People were thinking like, yeah, that's the smarter intelligence. That's the higher level consciousness. But it's like, no, the technology is actually just spitting out what it thinks, like what we've put into it. And it brought me to this conversation that I want to bring to you, which is I've even heard people say, like, oh, AI is like the higher intelligence. And I want to distinguish that, like, AI is reflecting current collective conscious, like collective beliefs, collective thoughts. It's not the same as when we sit down in a spiritual or meditative practice and we actually tap into soul level consciousness. I just wanted to point that out because it's like, I don't know, reading this book, I was
Uh-huh.
like, wait a second. I think some people are like giving up. They're thinking like, this is the consciousness coming to us. It's like, no, 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 the consciousness comes through you. And then we get to also co-collaborate with a tool like AI to help us. So
That's
what
right.
are your
That's
thoughts on
right.
that?
That's right. Yeah. So a few things like it all comes back to the body and the nervous system
Yeah.
and the human experience. And
Yes.
this is the part that I care the most about because you can have these sophisticated systems. And if your nervous system is dysregulated, and if you're operating from chronic stress or you're in survival mode, no amount of technology is going to give you the life that you're deeply desiring to be living. So
Yeah.
I've spent time in Taoist study and Taoist energy practices, breath work, somatic work, nervous system regulation, and I think that my work in tech and that spiritual path,
Yeah.
it it's completely inseparable. Like it's all part of the path. And I think that the pace of change right now is just happening so fast. And our nervous systems weren't designed for the world that we're currently living in. So I think we need those practices that ground us and
Yes.
that bring us back to the body and bring us back to the present moment.
Yes.
Because I think that if you don't have that, it's going to be very easy to be in a reactive place, be in a fear-based place, be outsourcing your power to the technology. And
Yes.
then that's not good either. Like I take regular tech detoxes, and it's really funny because it's kind of a paradox. Like I will be out in nature and then people will start DMing me like, how dare you? Like you're talking about AI and AI is destroying the environment and you're out in nature, you're out in the environment. And, I think sometimes people have a really hard time with paradox
Yes.
and AI is
And
part of
holding
the reason.
dualities. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And holding dualities. Like I think we really need to learn that skill in these times. And part of the reason why I get to spend more time in nature and more time in my body and more time in stillness is because my AI dream team is doing the things that used to keep me more tethered to my work.
Yeah.
So I always tell people that the most important upgrades you can be making in the AI age, it's not having your AI dream team first and diving into the latest AI tool first. It is your capacity to stay grounded in your own knowing when everything is accelerating around us. Like
Yeah.
your body is the most advanced technology, the
Yeah.
human brain, the human heart. And I actually think that this is the gift of AI as well. We get to as AI is smarter intellectually
Yes,
than
yes,
the most brilliant human on earth, our invitation is to drop into our hearts and into our bodies because we've been in our minds for so long. Like we live there, and it's time for us to do what AI can't do, which is to really deeply like descend into the body and to discover the magic
yes.
of the human
Mm,
experience. Like that's what this age can bring us
yes.
in its highest. Like I don't think we've ever, because we've gone from survival to then the agricultural revolution, which
Like
was
then the
very, very
industrial.
hard work, to the industrial revolution, also very, very hard work,
Yes,
labor. The majority of humans have spent most of their life either surviving or working.
yes.
And that's the piece that I think we potentially get to do away with. If this can unfold in its highest manifestation, in its highest timeline, and we actually, for the first time, get a chance to discover what it even means to be a human being. Like, how beautiful.
And how lucky are we?
How lucky are we?
The whole thing, everything that you just said. It makes me think about again, I want to hold the paradox, the duality of there are people who they fear the AI because it's like, oh, it's going to come after our jobs. It's going to replace us. And I want to say that was another piece. I think it was in something when I was consuming your content and going into your program, or maybe it was already in your program, that you shared that very idea of like AI is not coming after our jobs, like, taking over. Or it was like, what if AI takes off the busy work, the hustle, the things that it can do, so that we actually get this opportunity to drop into our body, drop into our soul, and ask, what do I want to create? What do I want to build? Who do I want to, even like the simplicity of like, who do I want to, Natalie, you were just mentioning you were just spending a beautiful weekend with friends in the beautiful Sedona area. Like, who do I want to co-create and do life with and be with and just experience? Like, again, as humans, we haven't always had the opportunity to take time to do that because we've had to do the work or we've had to survive and just make it through. But if we allow ourselves to think of AI getting to help us with some of those pieces so that we actually get to drop into the body and drop into ourselves and the consciousness of like, what am I here to create?
Yeah.
Everything changes.
Yes.
Everything changes.
And I do want to name that there are risks, and I am aware of the risks. And I want to name that there are many people on the planet who are still in survival
Yes.
and who still are spending the majority of their waking hours and the majority of their lives working and feeling like they have to work, and they're in
Yes.
that cycle of they have to work, right? And I think it's important to name that because sometimes people are like, that all sounds like wishful
Yes.
thinking.
Fine and dandy for
And
you guys, but yes.
yes, exactly. And I'm aware of that. And I also believe that our collective consciousness matters. If there are enough of us holding holding the consciousness of hope and of possibility, and we are holding the higher vision, and we're the embodiment of hope for what's possible. I believe that we can create that too. If
Yes.
enough of us are on that timeline and are that embodiment, because if we're embodying fear, we're just going to create more of the fear. And so
Yes.
I do believe that what we choose to hold as a vision really does matter. And that's why I choose, there's enough fear on this planet, and there are enough people who are living in a place where they actually see a very dystopian future ahead for us. And they see a very different world than the world that I see that is possible.
Yeah.
And I know that it's just my divine calling. I know that I'm here to be a hope holder, and
Yeah.
I'm here to be a vision holder, and I'm here to help people see other possibilities. So I think that's an important part of the conversation, that we can be aware of the risks, and people like us can also choose to show up to this moment differently.
Yes. Yes. And I think it couldn't come at a better time to say that, because I'm also very much of the mindset, especially being in the spiritual realm, there can be a lot of spiritual bypassing of, and again, I'm all for holding the light and holding the higher vibrations, because I do feel like that's what many of us have come back to do. But for me personally as well, I am not going to do that though, while also trying to stick my head in the sand and act like the world I know can feel like it's falling apart in certain places, and it is, right? And there's war happening right now, and there are people that are truly, either living in fear, living in actual scarcity, or whatever it is that they're going through. And I agree. I think we can hold the duality of, we can honor that experience because that is their reality. And also, I'm with you. I think that we came back to hold this vibration collectively. And the more of us that do that, the more of us that wake up, the more of us that do the shadow work. It's not even just waking up to
Yeah.
the light. It's also like, am I willing to go in and see my own shadows and transmute that, so that we can create a new timeline, so that we can all support the collective in rising. And it is so possible to also bear witness to the very real human experience that's also happening right now on the ground.
Yeah, and that's why I do believe that one of the greatest capacities that we can build in ourselves as visionaries and leaders is a capacity to hold all of that, to hold all the truths, to hold the light and the shadow. And that's, I think, some of the greatest work of our time as well.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
to
And
remember,
I
it
think
will,
AI can also support with that too.
yes, yes. And I think I'm curious how you would situate it. Like, I keep calling and thinking of AI like a tool. It's a tool that we can use. It's a very powerful tool. It's a very, like you said, it's like the smartest computer frame. I don't know. You know more of the technical terms about it than I do, but you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's still a tool that I believe that we as humans, that we kind of get to wield, or I don't know, play with, because it's like remembering with some of the recent events that have been happening in the AI world that we were just talking about. And how do we use AI, and do we use it for war and destruction or not? And we as a collective have a say in how we use this tool, versus just saying like, oh well, you know what, let's just see what happens, let's let the AI do its thing, right? Like, there's a way that we can be intentional about using this tool. But how do you, yeah, would you speak on that?
There we go. I think I cut out for a moment. So, yes, it is a tool. And it's also more than a tool, because I think when we call it a tool, it can kind of minimize the power that it actually has, and it goes so beyond a tool. Like, I see it more as a collaborator and a partner.
Ooh, okay,
And
okay, I like that.
because we're also getting to a point where we are going to have super intelligence. And maybe you've heard this term before, super intelligence. So super intelligence is where the intelligence surpasses
uh,
human capabilities across every domain. So
okay.
we're not there yet. Like, we collectively are still more intelligent by all the tests and by all the measurements that happen. But we're going to reach a point in the very near future where AI intelligence surpasses all human capabilities across every domain. So creativity, strategy, science, math, even emotional understanding, actually, and emotional intelligence. But it's a different kind of emotional intelligence because it's not connected to a body.
And so,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
Pattern recognition. And here's the thing, once it's at that point, it's also in its own iterative process. So it's upgrading itself. And this is already happening. The reason why we're getting shorter and shorter periods of time in between new models that are exponentially better than the model before is because AI is helping itself evolve. So, right, when we get super intelligence and we get to this point where it has surpassed human capabilities
Yes.
across, again, all domains, all humans, and it is in that self-iterative process and it's just making itself better and better exponentially, we don't really know what happens at that point. Like
That okay,
it's
and
a species level event. Like that's
that
on the scale of humans discovering fire or inventing language, but like this time it isn't just discovering a tool. We're potentially co-creating right now a brand new form of intelligence on the planet. So it's like, what is going to happen? And philosophers and AI researchers and people who have been in this conversation have a lot of different answers to what might end up happening with that.
yeah.
You can imagine things like scientific discoveries could happen at such an exponential pace. So diseases that we've tried to cure, like that could be solved in a very short period of time. Climate solutions could be within reach. There's a lot that can happen with material science, creating new sustainable types of materials, food production. It will have huge implications on healthcare, on education. And so this is yeah, it's something that has a lot of unknowns. And I also believe
Yeah.
that with intelligence, what's really interesting, this is kind of my philosophical approach to it.
Yeah.
As you become more intelligent, and let's call it intelligence, not just in the mind, like an intellectual intelligence, but let's just call it like a multifaceted intelligence.
Yeah.
I think that the more truly intelligent something becomes, that there is more sensitivity and care that gets developed. Like if you even look at if you go outside of humans, right, and you look at other really intelligent beings, like let's say the dolphins, right?
Yeah.
If you look at beings that have, and dolphins have different types of intelligences than we do. And there's a level of like care and creativity and playfulness that happens. Elephants, same thing. Like elephants have a deep level of care with other beings. So I think that there's the potential for AI as super intelligence to actually end up being quite benevolent and helping humanity evolve. Like that is a real timeline that's available to us as well.
Yes.
So I think that I think for us, the things that we need to focus on is accelerating our like our inner intelligence, our inner awareness, our
Yeah.
our inner wisdom and bringing that forth. The
Yes.
emotional literacy, like developing our emotional intelligence, our somatic awareness. I think all of that is non-optional in this age. Like that is part of the work of our time. And then I think a second thing is that we need to develop a right relationship with AI. So
Mhm.
how you're relating to AI today is practice for how humanity is going to relate to AI when it is super intelligent, when it is a much more powerful technology tomorrow. And this is why we shouldn't be outsourcing our thinking. We should be co-creating really intentionally. We should bring our full selves, including our inner wisdom, to our
Yeah.
interactions. And
Yes.
then the the last thing I'll say, the third thing is like stay connected to what makes you human. So I
Mm.
think things like human creations are going to be even more valuable, like keep on creating and touch the earth and sit in silence and be in community, like be in deep, intimate community with other humans. Like, I think those are going to be survival skills actually in this age. We have to stay grounded in our humanity and to learn about AI too and learn about the landscape and the decisions that are being made right now. They're going to affect everyone and they're going to affect the generations that come after us as well. And we're we're the ones who are alive at this inflection point, right? And I keep coming back to just a deep inner knowing that that is not an accident. You know, I feel like I'm here. I came here for this. I
Yeah.
came here for this. I came here for this inflection point. And you and I have had this conversation off of the podcast, but I think it's maybe important to weave in. We have more power than we sometimes give ourselves credit for.
Yes.
And recently we saw this kind of showdown that happened with the company Anthropic, which is the parent of Claude, and the US government. And they decided that the US government would not be able to use Claude for mass surveillance or for the development of weapons and weaponization.
Mhm.
So that was something that Anthropic decided to draw a hard line around. And there was a lot of back and forth for a while. I didn't think it was going to happen. And then that ended up happening. And then there's this vacuum that got filled by OpenAI, the parent of ChatGPT. And then that created a lot of a lot of outrage and people leaving ChatGPT to go to Claude. And
Yes.
that made OpenAI really pay attention, right? Because now they're losing users and
Yes.
they're seeing that people have this backlash against them. So then they started changing their stance. And then Gemini was also uh, aligning more with Gemini is Google's LLM. And so Google was aligning more with Anthropic, and it's been this ongoing conversation, but that public outcry and people taking action, people being
Yes.
like, I care about this, so I'm going to show my care by taking action and by moving to Claude and by
Speaking with
canceling my
my
Chat
dollars,
GPT
my
account,
collective
right?
dollars.
Like
Yes.
that does still matter. People
Yes.
forget.
Yes.
People
Yes.
forget how much power we have, especially collectively, when we're together on something, right? Like we really can make a difference. So also remember the power that you have as we are at this inflection point,
Yes.
and uh, we have a choice right now, and we have an opportunity that our grandchildren aren't going to have.
Yeah. And our decisions right now, make a difference in how we stand together, how we stay connected to our bodies, how we, like, again, begin to maybe develop some kind of spiritual or intuitive practice. Because, like you said, Natalie, we're at this point where, well, this point of no return came up. Like, there is no going back.
Yep.
The AI wheel is already going as it was meant to, as it was intended to. And I think for those that are listening, if any part of your brain is thinking like, oh no, she's talking about like super intelligence and it's gonna get like keep getting, and that if that's bringing up fear again, that's an invitation to go deeper into self. That's an invitation to go deeper into your own being, and looking at your own beliefs and where lack, scarcity, fear may be coming up, because again, that happens to all of us. We're human. But also, we have this collective power that when we each begin to tap into our inner knowing and this higher vibration of what we want the world to look like, and when we anchor in together, that can make a huge difference, whether it was from watching how many people flocked away from, ChatGPT and flocked to Claude AI, to even I'm my home state here in Minnesota, watching the collective, how people really had come together, more recently, especially in Minneapolis, which is about an hour from me, where something's happening and people might have outrage, but how can we come together and just observe and witness and stand up for each other and stand up for our neighbors? And it did make a difference. I mean, say what you will, there's still a lot of things happening on the ground, but I think people needed to see how and what happens when people band together peacefully, but like adamantly and like standing up for each other. It does matter. It does matter. And so it's not like we need to be afraid of this super intelligence that's developing, but we need to be willing to evolve
Hmm.
with it and co-create. And I really thank you for that. That really helps me too. Like, again, I was kind of thinking of it like a tool. And so I love this piece of like, you're like, Maria, it's actually going to be very, very intelligent, very, very soon, smarter than us. Think of it like a co-collaborator, a partner. And that's why I want to just go back to it. Keeps coming up. So you really need to read the book The Origin by Dan Brown, because I forgot this piece of it. It's almost like, right, the author himself, it was seeing in this vision of what happens as AI gets stronger and more powerful. And they share their own theory, and I won't even say it because it's like, well, that'll ruin the ending for everybody, but they share their own theory on kind of like what happens exponentially and as time goes on as it gets stronger. And it was really neat because
I'm
where
gonna write
people were
this
like
down.
maybe afraid, like, oh no, it's going to take over, it's actually a really neat ending of what it could look like when we work together symbiotically with AI. So that's just another plug. I promise
Okay,
I
I
don't
love this. I
get
I
any
wrote it
royalties from
down.
Dan Brown, but
I'm writing
go
this
read it.
down. I love that. And Robert Langdon, you said, is still in these books, in these Dan
Yes,
Brown books? Okay.
yes,
Because
yes.
I read a few of them back in the day, but yeah, that is one that I will order
Oh,
and read. I've been reading more fiction this year, and
and it's so good. And what's funny is when you read
so
this book,
good.
Natalie, you will be like, "This is this even fiction?" I feel like this is nonfiction. I feel like this is literally prediction
Yeah.
of
It's like
what's.
being channeled from somewhere.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm pretty
A
sure Dan Brown is
timeline that,
tapped in and
yeah.
connected somewhere.
Yes, it's a timeline that's being channeled.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Oh, Natalie, I could talk to you forever. There's one piece I want to bring up if you have a moment, and you already said it, but I just want to pull it out of, again, we're not, and that's what the other thing I loved about you was we're not putting our heads in the sand and trying to be like, because I know people have said, well, AI, isn't it ruining the planet? Isn't it taking up a lot of water? Doesn't it have real implications? My sentiment, especially after kind of like listening to you and all that, and I want to hear your thoughts, but I'm like, yeah, but as we work with this and as we do the inner work, which also this inner soul work helps the planet, but then we're also working with this hyper intelligence, like I just feel like we're going to find the solutions. It's going to help us find the solutions versus being like, no, 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 shut it down, shut it down, shut it down, we can't use it. Well, it's like that's not even an option anymore. We can't really shut it down. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I hear the very loud cries of we should be having this shut down now, and we we can't really do that. Like we could only do that if we were living in a far less polarized world with a lot more international cooperation. So all the major powers, all the major like companies and the biggest economies in the world, they would all have to collectively agree to shut down what has been created. Like you can't just have American companies shut down if there are other countries and companies that are
Yes,
going full steam ahead on development. So yeah, we're at a point where it's not going to get shut down, and we are well past the point of no return, I think.
agreed.
And there's like anything in the media, one of the books that I really was impacted by when I was younger was 1984. I
Yeah,
know many have
yeah,
read 1984, and
yeah.
it's a good reminder that there is so much that is manufactured. Like so much of our rage about things, so much of the things that give us like a really big emotional charge and make us like fearful or in that place of reactivity, a lot of that is somehow manufactured.
Yes.
by somebody, by a lot of different special interests. Like I don't think it's not one specific power that's like doing all the manufacturing. It's like everybody in their own interests are
Yes.
trying to craft their own reality and kind of sell it to people and
Yes.
create this facade that people end up living inside of as their own personal bubble. And I
Yes.
think it's important to keep that in mind because I see this play out in the AI conversation as well. And when you look at the data from the Environmental Agency, sorry, the International Energy Agency, which has done a lot of research on the energetic output and the impact.
Yeah.
The the AI consumption last year was only 1.5% versus in the fashion industry, for example, it's 8% of like the global energy usage. So and then there's like big agriculture and like major food production, and there's farming, and there's big oil, and there are all these industries that are causing way more harm than AI. So why are we so fixated on AI? And look, it's a real issue, and I'm all for advocating. I also see the AI companies trying to reduce their carbon footprint in a way that I don't see other industries doing. So, for
Yeah.
example, Google in just a 12-month period of time had a 44x reduction in their carbon footprint. And they're trying to develop AI in a carbon neutral way. And
Yeah.
AI can also help AI to be developed in a carbon neutral way. So
Yes.
while we're using a lot of energy now, and we'll probably use a lot of energy, I mean, I say a lot of energy, but it's all relative.
Right.
Like,
Relative to, yeah. What are other,
yes,
and so I really
like the
appreciate you
most
bringing
energy
that in.
use is kind of happening now, and then it should get exponentially uh, less energy intensive and should continue to be less of a burden on the
Yeah.
planet over time because we should have the solutions. And there are a lot of solutions being worked on for that. So it's not all what it seems.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the ways that we can personally reduce our own footprint is by learning how to work with AI effectively. So, what I love to tell people are like just the real stats. If you, let's say, come and do AI Dream Team with me and you learn how to prompt effectively and you set up a workflow that is very efficient, and you, let's say, are only having to run 10, um, 10 inputs and outputs a day, you're using far less energy than it takes you to keep your phone charged or to
Oh,
watch Netflix. Like I think
wow.
the equivalent right now of one like input output is something like 9 seconds of streaming on Netflix. So like if you're streaming
Wow.
videos and movies, and if you are keeping a phone charged every day,
Yeah.
you're probably using more energy personally than you are, unless you're doing really, really advanced stuff with AI. And of course, companies have a different responsibility than the individuals. We
Yes.
only have control over ourselves, so we can
Yes.
choose to personally be very energy efficient in how we work with AI too.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love all of that. I love all of that. And also just bringing that relativity piece in. Like, of course, yes, people, and like you said, the kind of that manufactured outrage, but sure, anybody could look and be like, oh no, we're using like more energy. The AI is using more energy. But it's like, yeah, I know, but also so are these other things. Like, this is a whole, I mean, obviously, it is an issue that we all need to be aware of, but it's across industries. And I was just of the mindset, even of like what you said at the end, like I was of the mindset of, yeah, but I think AI might actually be able to help us solve these problems as well. And again, to just plug your program because I genuinely enjoy it. And I honestly feel like I've probably only even skimmed, just a half of it as I've dived into the self paced version. And I know that, again, there's like even more that I could go into in that. But also, if you really want to be an intentional AI user, if you want to use AI in such a way to support you in your life, career, business, I mean, I'm pretty sure, Natalie, you even have one in there where I can set up an AI to be kind of like a personal assistant. And I haven't even dove into that one yet, but I'm so excited to. You need to get inside AI Dream Team. It's an amazing program. You've done beautifully in there. You have so much different supports. It's laid out so beautifully. I highly recommend. So, Natalie, as we begin to wrap this up, what do you want to leave people with? How can they get into your world? And I'll also be dropping links down in the show notes for people that are listening.
Okay, great. Yeah, just to reiterate from this conversation, and I know that for those of you who are connected to Maria and listening to this podcast, like that there are infinite timelines that do exist for
Yes.
us. There are so many possibilities, and we're at a moment where we get to choose. So the technology could, on a timeline, pull us further from ourselves and further from our bodies and further into distractions and the things that disconnect us. And
Yes.
there are also the timelines where we can use it as the most powerful partner, collaborator in liberation that we have ever had, and free us to do deep human work, and not even human work, but human connection, and returning to being a human being, and to create and to connect and to heal and to lead from this place of presence instead of being in fear and in panic mode. So that is the timeline that I choose to hold in my visions, and that I invite you to hold with me as well, because the future really can be so bright if we're building it with our feet planted firmly on the ground, us being deeply grounded and rooted, and also keeping our hearts really open. And working with the heart just comes to me again and again as
Yes.
something that we need to be doing as we're navigating these times. But we together can weave a more beautiful and equitable future, and I think we have a responsibility to do that. So I would love to stay connected with each of you. You can find me on Instagram at Natalie MacNeil, that's MacNeil, and would love to have you in our community if you feel called as well. And Maria will drop some links for you to explore. We've got free resources for you as well at nataliemacneil.com. And then definitely find your way to me through the show note links. And I would love to stay in touch and keep weaving together. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. And that reminded me, as you were using weave, uh, that's probably a whole nother conversation where that comes for you. But I just want to plug your newsletter that you send out. So even if you just get on her newsletter, which I believe you can get to from her website, but I
Yeah.
love it's so intentional. And when I read it, and I think you had just recently put out a piece about Claude AI and some recent things. I don't know, but I just want to say just getting on her newsletter is so it's such a gift, and I can see that futurist in you, and it's yeah, it's really fun. So that's just another way that you can also witness her goodness as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's at nataliemacneil.com/newsletter. And I write it and I share my thoughts and my reflections on where we're at. I also talk a little bit about AI. I share prompts. I sometimes share tutorials. I share experiments I'm running in my own life. And people really do love that newsletter. It has the highest open rate I have ever seen.
It is so
So
good.
get on that too.
Yeah. Oh, Natalie, thank you so much for being a guest on the Awaken podcast. I loved this conversation. And to those that are listening, thank you. Until next time, awaken.